around, it won't let me out. Sing when I swim, I'm drowning in. I sing when I swim from the pressure in my. When I swim, I'm drowning in. I sing when I swim from the pressure.
All right. There we go. Okay, everything's working good. Welcome back, everyone, to a little chat stream. Don't really do these much anymore, and probably should. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Um, Abit are already in the chat. Dudes here every time. I saw you were logged in the Discord. If you want to jump in, I'm on the live stream only voice channel on the Discord, so only admins, fellow YouTubers, and stream guests alongside myself can get into it. That's by design. Don't want random people jumping in the VC while we're on live. So you're one of the admins, of course, on the server. So if you want to jump in, you can. Um, just I don't want to talk to myself forever. um, but yeah, I finally get to utilize that voice channel. I've had it here on the server for years, since we were doing the like interview streams and stuff like that, and obviously we don't do those anymore. But anyway, welcome to what's effectively just a short chat stream. Kind of was just bored, wanted something to do, and it's been since when was the last time I did something like this? It was 3 months ago, so it's been a few months, and yeah, so wanted to kind of give you guys just a fun who's who and what's going on, kind of behind the scenes stuff while we're working towards Wookies in the Woods and all that stuff coming up here in a couple of weeks or next week actually. I see he's in here now. It's just I can't hear him if he's talking. I can't hear you if you're
Oh,
talking.
I didn't want to interrupt. Sorry.
No, you're good. Let me crank your volume up. I can barely hear you.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I hopped on my Xbox
No, you're good.
because yeah, this my phone's about to die and I don't want to walk away from the charger.
Yeah, I get you. I forgot I've been filming all those GT4 videos, so like my audio was cranked way low on my headphones because I have a really hard time doing like any sort of videos if I can hear like music or anything in the background. So I had to have
Mhm.
everything turned down real low so I could still function.
I
Uh,
got.
I don't know if you've been watching those. Have you been seeing my GT4 stuff? What I've been up to over there?
Yeah, I've watched a few of them.
That
It
series is kicking my butt.
makes me want to. Actually, my PS2's plugged in right now. But I
Shoot,
gotta find Gran Turismo 4. I've been
I
playing Underground a lot.
I just got back in Underground 2 actually. I was playing it the other night. I booted it up on my Steam Deck since I have that set up with all my emulators, and I was sitting there just having a blast. I definitely think my desktop's better suited for it, but all of my old discs on my PS2 are shot, so that's the only way I can really play them now is on emulator. But
I want to get a new PC so I can run emulator stuff because my PC is one outdated as can be and is the power supply is fried.
yeah, that's a fire hazard at that point.
Yeah, I've it's been unplugged ever since I moved into this new house 4 years
Yeah,
ago.
I would get it. I would look into the Steam Deck honestly, or I would say if you're looking at wanting one that actually had some horsepower behind it, because my thing with the Steam Deck is having had one for working on 2 years now, I love it, but it is so underpowered.
Can you run Beam on it?
You can actually, as of like last year, I think they finally added compatibility because it runs Linux, it doesn't run Windows,
Really? That's
so
odd.
everything
If
has
it
to get,
ran
huh?
if it ran Windows, it'd be all if it ran Windows, one, it would be a lot more it could support, and two, I think a lot of PC manufacturers would be very upset by that because you'd be getting a fairly powerful gaming rig for what, a quarter of the cost of a decent PC.
Right. And I've ran Windows on mine because they ship it with Linux, but
Mm-hmm.
you can install Windows if you wanted to. And so I tried it out. I installed Windows 10 on it
Mm-hmm.
and ran it for about 2 weeks. And honestly, it performed worse.
Oh,
And
well,
that seemed to be the mixed bag, as everyone was saying. You're either going to absolutely love the Windows experience on the Steam Deck, or you're going to hate it.
it's probably optimization,
Right.
really, all what it's down to.
And it is underpowered. I mean, if you look at it, it's got like a slightly better processor than like a Switch. Like it's pretty underpowered for what it is. Like I would say if you're looking at getting something like that, like a handheld PC, look into what's that company called? They've done them for years now. GPD's got a really good lineup, and then ROG just dropped their handheld PC, which runs Windows, I believe,
Mhm.
and it's actually more powerful. Like people are actually playing Gran Turismo 5 on it, and it's running perfect, and it can run like all the major like iRacing and stuff like that, all the major sims. Whereas the
Mhm.
Steam Deck can't. One because it's on Linux, and two just because it's got a pretty basic processor.
One of
But
my goals this year is to get a new PC, but you know, cars sense when you get your paycheck,
right.
and
Oh,
I don't
sweet
know.
money. Yeah, I'm with you. Like I cannot stay. Like whenever I get paid, I'm like, I need to get something for the car, don't I?
I was betting myself like I so I bought a BMW and I'm like thinking, I'm like wondering what's gonna go wrong first, and then it ends up Mustang doing something weird. I'm like,
Right.
out of all things, I would thought
And you've got an
the
N20
BMW.
car. Like the
Well,
N20 has its moments, and that's why I'm like, out of all the cars you've had, it's the Mustang that gives you trouble first.
yes.
Like
Um,
there's a
I
reason
will
I
say
don't have a 328i, and that was it. Because I did not like. I don't mind the N20. It's not my favorite.
it's I just wanted something that was all-wheel drive and was in my price range, and
It just worked out.
yeah, well, the up in 2015 they updated the timing chain guides, and
Right.
mine's a August of 15 build for 2016 model year, so mine's in the fixed.
Well, that's good at
Uh,
least. Like that's like the
yeah,
only thing that's wrong with N20s is those timing chains.
I I did weeks of research before I bought this car because part of me always kind of wanted a BMW, but at the same time, like I know BMW issues.
Right. And it's only the old ones that had a ton of problems. The newer ones, they finally got
Hmm.
their crap together. Like, B58s are like really reliable. And that's what I'm
Well,
like, you
because
know,
Toyota had a hand in that.
yeah. But
Well,
like,
what's funny, have you seen the polls or the Consumer Reports where they rated reliability studies and BMWs on the top now?
oh my gosh. They've come a long way, that's for sure. I think all the German manufacturers have, like all of them. Like even the Mark 7 is hailed as like the most reliable like version of the GTI you can get.
I
And
remember the Mark 6 was horrendous on reliability.
oh, it's not as bad as the Mark IV. I mean, the Mark IVs were awful reliability wise.
You don't see any Mark 4s anymore. You always see,
They've
you see, I still see a decent amount of Mark 5s.
they've all rusted out.
Yeah. Well, I live
Mark
in a Rust Belt, so that.
every I've been kind of eyeing the market, trying to see if I might get lucky in a Mark IV R32 in a couple of years because that's like
Mhm.
the pinnacle for me. I want an R32 really bad. Whether Mark IV or Mark V doesn't matter as long as it has that badge on the front and it's blue and it's got
Mhm.
that Wookiee noise coming out the back. I don't care. And I found one for sale last week. They posted it and it was like 15 grand, which is really cheap for a Mark IV R32. And I was like, all
That.
right, let me go through the pictures because the pictures like it looks great. It's got some mileage, but it looks really good from like far away. So I'm just going
Mhm.
through the pictures. I'm like, let me see if I can get a look at the front fender, like right where it meets the door. Sure enough, rust spot. Every Mark IV I've
Oh.
ever seen has rust in that spot, right by the door on the front fender,
Mhm.
and it's always a Mark IV that does it. Like Mark V's will rust too, but they're never as bad as the Mark IVs. And
Yeah.
the Mark 6 was pretty bad too. I saw a couple of Mark 6s for sale. One guy posted one for 15 grand, and I was like, dude, I'd buy this because I love the Mark 6. As dodgy as the reliability can be, it's so like hit and miss. The Mark 6 Golf R is one of my favorite VWs, and I found one for like 15 grand, and I was like, if I had the money, I'd buy this. But it
Mhm.
had a horrible rust spot in the door. Like the paint was bubbling on the door, and I was like, man,
Oh.
these VWs and their
I
rust.
I tell you what, when I did my first oil change in my X3, I went over. I took so at work, um, the mechanic. We have like four mechanics that work there, and we have three lifts. And after hours, we're allowed to use the lift to work on our own vehicles. So I put the X3 up on there, and I don't know if you know this about BMWs, but they have a plastic. thing under the running boards, or the what's it called, the not the running board.
Kind of like a
Um,
shield,
what's that? What's the term for that? Not
like
running
a
board.
under
Running
tray.
board. Yeah.
Kind of like an under tray.
Okay. It'll come to me. The door sills.
Right.
They have these plastic things that stick out where you can put the jack on them, which I thought was nice.
Oh, they've got those weird jack points. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
hearing about BMWs having those.
Which I actually kind of like. I thought I was going to hate it because I was scared to put the weight of a 4,000-pound SUV on it, but it holds
Right.
it just fine. And I live in the Rust Belt, like in the heart of the Rust Belt.
Right.
This car has 80. I looked at it, had 86,000 miles on it when I changed the oil. Not a spot of rust. The whole
That's impressive.
looks like a brand new car underneath. No oil leaks. Knock on wood,
I
because
heard
know
the knocking.
BMWs are notorious for oil leaks. No, this car has been really well taken care of.
And that's what I
And-
love about German cars, and what I always say about German cars. And I've done a lot of research on them over the years,
Mhm.
obviously, as I looked into buying one. I read, it's a culture thing. With Japanese cars and German cars, they're engineered the exact same way. Like they're both over-engineered. But in Japanese culture, they tend to be a little bit more like, thinking of the what ifs. Like, what if the customer does this and this instead of doing
Mhm.
what we manufactured the car for? Like, say they build a Land Cruiser. They're like, what if someone plans on taking this and doing the Dakar Rally with it without modifying it? So they engineer it in such a way where it can handle the Dakar Rally if someone wanted to throw a Land Cruiser that was unmodified at it. Whereas in German culture, it's very much a rule-following culture. It's by the book.
Rules are the rules.
Yeah, so I mean, you get a German car, when you maintain them to a T, to how the owner's manual says to take care of it, it will run just as well and just as long as a Honda or a Toyota. But it's when you don't follow that maintenance, or if you're like me and you're overzealous and you're like, you do stuff early, that's when stuff starts to fail. So I mean, as long as you stay on top of that maintenance, that car will treat you well. It's just like, and sure, some of them do have their faults. Like I'm not gonna sit here and try to defend a B5 S4 or a Mark IV Volkswagen or, an E36 reliability troubles. But like, for like the modern stuff, especially like the Mark V Golfs onward and all that kind of stuff, if you take good care of them, they'll treat you good right back. It's just the people who expect it to be just as easy to care for as a Honda, and then they start breaking because they're not following the rules. So I've noticed that with German cars, and that's why I'm like, I've got 3 friends now, or 2 friends now, including myself, 3 people in my friend group that have German cars, and I tell them if you stay on top of your maintenance, it treats you well. None of them have any problems out of their cars, except Michael's S5 has a check engine light for cat efficiency, but like,
it's an Audi. That comes from the factory like that.
yeah. But like the RS3 has no issues. The S5 outside of the cat efficiency code, no issues. My car, no issues. And they're all modified. It's not like we're all driving around stock cars. So it's just like, it's like I've always said, is just take good care of it. It takes good care of you.
See, as you know, I've owned every
Fords.
vehicle I've owned has been American, and yeah, Fords.
Fords.
And the thing about American cars is that they're engineered dead simple, and to a point they're designed to break. But
Right.
the advantage with American cars is parts are everywhere, and they're
Right.
cheap.
That's one thing I hate.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I looked up, just because I don't know if I'm working myself up about the whole rear end thing on the Mustang. A Ford Performance 373 rebuild kit for the 373 rear ends on the 8.8 rear axle, $300, and it's a Ford Performance branded part. It comes with ring, pinion, gasket, shims, bearings, fluid, and friction modifier for $300.
And I'm willing to bet if you went and tried to look into a diff up like a M Sport diff for the X3, it'll cost triple that.
Which my car is already an M Sport, so that kind of helped.
Yeah, that does help a lot actually. But like for my car, and it's the same thing with my car. Like parts are so expensive. You know how much I just ordered a handle, like an oh crap handle for my car because the passenger
Uh-huh.
side one's been broken since the day I bought the car. Take a guess. How much do you think this little piece of plastic cost me?
$125.
Not too far off, $80.
Okay, so
$80 for
not as bad as
plastic.
yes.
You know how much it cost me to replace all 4 door handles on my Sport Track, the exterior ones with metal upgrades?
Probably $50
$35 if I remember correctly.
for all 4. That's
All
not
4.
bad.
Got them on Amazon. They were all metal door handles and everything. I only was able to install one before the thing caught on fire, and then I got rid of it. But
Uh,
I still
the
get
thing,
questions about that thing on here. Like, that still somehow carries this channel, even though that truck has been gone for 2 years.
I tell you what, my Sport Track was probably my favorite car I've ever owned.
I mean, I would say the same
I-
if the GTI wasn't such a freaking slam dunk,
Well,
and my Sport Track didn't end its tenure the way it did.
Well, the reason I love my I love my Sport Track so much is I bought it with 120,000 miles on, it, which I would consider fairly low mileage for a truck because
For that age, yeah.
trucks, yeah. I put 30,000 miles on it before it was totaled, and
Yeah.
I've only had to do transmission line, rear leaf spring shackles, and a diff gasket. That's it.
Yeah.
That thing was, I probably, besides putting the wheels and tires and the stereo in it, for repairs, I probably put less than $200 in it.
I wish I was as lucky. Mine was like, what people say about Mark IV is that's how mine was, and that's part of why I was like quick to get rid of it when I got it back, because I put 2 transmissions in it the time I had it.
Mm-hmm.
It caught on fire at one point, and I was about to I was gonna replace the AC compressor if I'd kept it one more summer, because I was sick of not having air conditioning. It had a water leak somewhere in the interior,
Mm-hmm.
and I never was able to figure out where it was from. And like just all sorts of just really random weird little issues it had. And
Mm-hmm.
my now fiance hated it. That's part of why I got rid of it. She refused to ride in it after it caught on fire.
I remember that you told me that she would not go near it after.
No,
we were. And I can understand that.
I mean, it's kind of traumatic when you have a car catch on fire on you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was really sketched out about it like the first 3 weeks I had it back. I did not enjoy driving it because I was so paranoid something else was gonna break on it. And like we were talking just the other day, I asked her, I was like, I don't want another one unless it's mine. So it's like people always ask me like, are you ever gonna buy another Sport Track? And I'm like, no, unless it's my old one. And I asked her, I was like, if that ever happened, like in the event I'm scouring through Marketplace one day and I find it, and they have it for a reasonable price. They sell it for like $2,500, $3,000, whatever. Would you be okay if I bought it back? And she was like, I would divorce you on the spot. Because she hates that thing. And she was like, you'd be in the doghouse if that thing were in the driveway again one day when I come home from work. And I was like, fair enough, I guess. But it's like people ask me all the time. Like I've had multiple comments like over the last couple of years where it's just like, you should build another one. You should get another one. And I'm like, I'm not getting another one unless it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's like the perfect spec adrenaline package with the 4.6 and the all-wheel drive and the 6-speed transmission, that Garbo 5-speed that they had, like that. Those are the only 2 scenarios where another Sport Track will ever be in my life. But like outside of that, I'm probably gonna go Toyota. I'm probably gonna get a Tacoma or something like that.
Yeah, my next vehicle after the BMW, depending on how well the BMW does for the 5 years I own it, because I plan to have it until I pay it off.
Right.
If I end up going to the BMW, my next pick is going to be M340xi.
That is honestly one of my lists too. I am the master of having backup plans for all my backup plans. Mm-hmm. So I was telling my fiance a couple weeks ago, I was like, and forbid something happens to my GTI, my first pick is a Mark 7.5R. Because if I'm going to be real with myself, with all this stuff I'm going to have to worry about paying for over the next year, because me and her are coughing up our own money for our wedding. We're not getting any help for it. So that's an expense. We got to figure out, like all of the utilities and stuff since we're going to be moving in together around that time. So that's an expense we got to figure out. If I'm being real with myself, as much as I want a Mark 8R, there's no shot that if something happened to that car tomorrow, that it would happen, because it's just it would be too much a month. It'd be too much monthly for me to be able to stomach, while also worrying about all the other crap I got to pay for in the next year and a half. So like
The
the 7.5R fits that bill perfectly, because I'm still getting a Golf R out of the deal, even though it's
Mhm.
not the 8, but it'll be a platform I'm extremely familiar with, because it'll just be an all-wheel drive GTI at that point. And like I'll probably do a similar build to what I have now. And then my second place is if the market gets good on them, those M340i's with the X Drive, because they are just like I'm on a G20 too. I'm not talking like an F chassis. I'm talking the G20 car, the newest generation of them. Because I don't like the G80 M3 front end, but I love the G20 front end.
God, I hate the M3 M4 front end. That is
It's
probably
so
one of the.
bad.
It's been what 4 years since they debuted, and I still hate them.
They've grown on me. I still don't like them. Like when they first came out, I thought it was the most abhorrent thing to ever touch the road since the Pontiac Aztek. I thought it was the ugliest thing ever. But as like
See,
mods have come out for it, and like they've got the CSL grill now, which kind of gives it like a bar in the middle, and there was another brand that does it, and they've added like a bar across the grill, and they've made it so much better.
not Alpina, is it?
I don't think it's Alpina. I think it's I want to say it's like Oettinger or something like that. One of the aftermarket companies did it, but they made it look really good. So I'm just like, like it can work, but I do think
Mhm.
the G20, like the regular 3 Series, looks 10 times better than whatever the heck is going on with the G80 front end. And
See, sorry,
no, you're good.
the one vehicle that grew on me that surprised me was the current gen Silverado.
Yeah,
Especially the HDs. I hated them when we first got them, and when we got the ones from for at work, we got 3 brand new ones. I hated them. I still don't like the mirrors on them because they look ugly and they are a big blind spot when you're driving them. But the
oh
front
yeah,
ends have grown on me.
oh yeah. It's
The
no, you're good. Go ahead.
sorry, I coughed.
No, you're good.
No, you're good. I that's all I had to do. That's all I had to say.
No, like I'm with you, because like a lot of domestic stuff has taken some time to grow on me. I wasn't sure I liked the S650 the first time I saw it. Me and my dad were at our Cars and Coffee event, and we talked to a guy who had just bought a Dark Horse. It is so big in person. Like
Oh
I
no.
thought it was going to be about the same size as the S550, and even then, I thought that was kind of pushing it for a Mustang in terms of size. Um, and then I see the S650. I'm like, this thing's practically like a freaking sedan, which I'm like,
Like a
is great.
Charger.
Yeah, it's just great for back seat passengers, I guess, because having sat in the back of an S197 for a multitude of hours, not fun.
I
But
I sat in the back seat of mine just for fun, and fun is not
can't
the
get
way I
out.
would describe it.
No.
I'm 6'1", and I'm on the other side of 300 pounds. Not fun.
Yeah, I'm with you. I couldn't do it.
When I
I
was
mean, I've done
younger,
worse.
when I was younger, my uncle had a SN95 New Edge Mustang.
That's terrible
I
to sit in the back
basically a
of.
Fox body, and it felt like a Audi A8L in the backseat compared
Yeah,
to the S197.
yeah. Those are awful back seats. But like I was like, this is gonna be like a Rolls Royce in the back, probably for the S650s. But the only thing I don't like about the S650 is the back end. Like the front end, I'm impartial to. I like the headlights, but it just seemed more like evolution than revolution with that car. But they
Well,
made
the
it
thing
so much bigger, and I was like, okay, that's where the line kind of gets drawn with me. I'm just like, it looks too
you,
big for its own good now.
you see, the tail lights on the S650 is one of the things I really love about it.
Yeah,
Like I love the look of those. And one of my buddies, Ben, he has a '07 GT500,
that's sweet.
and his dad just bought a midnight blue dark horse. I saw it driving down the road the other day, and I had to take a double take because I'm like, is that what I think it is? And then I saw him a couple days after I saw that, and I was telling him about it. He's like, oh yeah, that's my dad's car. I'm like, you're kidding. He's like, nope, that's my dad's car. And he showed me a picture of it when he took delivery of it. That car, that color specifically, reminds me so much of Mr. Chrome, and that's one of my favorite Ford
Oh yeah,
colors.
I remember I wanted to try to find a way to get my Sport Track pin in Mr. Chrome, but never worked
Good luck.
out.
It costs 3 times what the truck's worth to paint
Yeah,
it.
yeah. But my dad and I, like I said, we talked to a guy who bought a dark horse, and he had I think it was either a Mach 1 or a GT 500 S550. And that actually was what told my dad he was not getting one because he didn't like it in person. And he's dead set on getting a new Z now, which I think will be a really fun addition to the house, considering, I'm the only import at the house right now. So
Oh, same here.
whenever he gets it done, we'll be, he'll be battling it out for fastest car at the house again. Because
See,
the Mustang was my dad's Mustang was undeniably the fastest car at the household until my GTI came along.
those Cyclone motors will move. People
They're not
hate
bad.
on the people hate on the V6. I can understand why they hated on the 4 liter and the S6 powered Mustangs, but
Oh,
when
those
that Cyclone
yeah,
motor came around,
it was a
I
game
tell you
changer.
what, they were faster than a 05 to '09 GT, the 3 valve.
Yeah,
They're lighter, they handle better. They Okay, one thing, they don't sound good. I will say that. They don't
no,
sound good.
that's what I've said about all the domestic V6s. You cannot get them to sound like an import V6. Like if you were to park a 3.7 Mustang and a V6 Camaro and a V6 Charger, and then you pull like an Audi S4, you get any of the BMW straight six cars, or you get like even a VR6 Volkswagen, and then you pull the J series Hondas, and like I'm trying to think of all the other your Japanese like even a Camry V6 sounds better, which is
Yeah,
saying so. It's a Camry, but one thing that the American cars have that the imports don't is they're pretty quick for what they are. Like sure, I mean obviously the V8 versions of all three of the muscle cars are going to crush the V6. Maybe not the Charger quite as
RT
much.
Challenger coming.
Maybe not the 5.7 Mopars, but like like
I
like everything above that will probably beat the V6.
It's
But
funny. I test drove a 20 brand new at the time 2022 Challenger RT with the 5.7 because I was considering getting a Challenger
I remember that.
before I wisened myself up and actually got my dream car, which was S197 Mustang. And it was quick because I
Ish.
haven't because I never driven a Coyote powered Mustang until that, and then I drove my car, and I'm like, this car is 11 years older,
Yeah, it drives so much
and it will
better.
blow the doors off of this Challenger, and it handles better, which is
Yeah,
surprising for it being a liver axle.
right.
But with it weighing about 500 to 600 pounds less, I
It's
mean,
definitely noticeable.
hmm
I my friends. I had my friend Michael had multiple Mopars,
I remember
and
that wide
he
body he had.
oh yeah, I hate that he didn't keep it very long, and that's like the car that got away to him. Like he's like, I kind of wish I'd kept that one, but I personally think he upgraded, even though his wide body was 0 miles when he got it. It was his spec, his build. I still think his S5 is the better car. Not just because I like German cars, but because dynamically it handles better. And now it's with that tune he uploaded on it. It's about as fast as the Scat was, and it
My
makes
buddy,
supercharger noises at at the same
yeah,
time.
my buddy did this thing. I love him to death, but this is the dumbest thing he did. Is he had a 2019 Tacoma TRD Sport with a 6-speed manual,
So pretty
and
pretty hard to
he
find
had it
truck
for
now.
yeah, he had it for about 3 months. He put a clutch in it because the throwout bearing went bad and they thought, and it only had like 75,000 miles on it. And
Hmm.
he's like, he took it to the Toyota dealership. They said, well, we're not just going to change out the throwout bearing. We're going to do the entire clutch. And after that, I told him to buy this truck because he bought a 14 Ram or 15 Ram, and the oil pump went out, took out the bottom end of the motor.
Yeah.
And he went and bought that Tacoma instead. I'm like, dude, keep this truck. Didn't listen to me. After put the clutch in it, sold it, and bought a brand new 2023 Ram 1500 E-Torque. And now he's
Bruh.
paying this big car payment on a
I'm
brand new
sure.
truck.
I'm sure it's
And
at
I'm
least
like,
750 on those. That's
it's
expensive.
I think his is in the 8th.
Sheesh. Yeah, I
And
couldn't.
it's not, and it's for like 84 months or something.
Oh wow, yeah, so it's not a base truck at that point.
Oh, it is a base truck. It's a big horn. It has
Oh my
the
gosh.
small screen, not touch screen.
Does it at
No
least have
Apple
the V8?
CarPlay. No, it's e-torque. It's the Pentastar e-torque.
Oh my goodness. He's spending $800 a month on a Pentastar.
hmm
That's wild.
I I will say one thing about it is it gets better mileage than this Tacoma did
Well,
because
the
the Tacoma
Tacomas are awful
V6s,
on gas.
yeah, but they'll run for 400,000 miles.
It's
Try
worth
doing
it.
that in a Dodge.
Or any domestic for that matter nowadays. Sheesh.
I mean, the diesels will
Well,
run that
yeah.
easy.
I don't think any gas truck's ever going to get that high of mileage without having some components replaced along the way.
I know the
Like,
Coyotes are usually pretty reliable.
yeah. But then you got to worry about transmissions still because domestic
Well,
companies,
yeah,
man.
the 10R80s are having issues now.
Michael's got an F-150. And,
hmm
like, my fiance's made it clear there's never going to be another blue oval on my driveway unless it's a Bronco. And which is ironic considering the Broncos' reputation right now is poor reliability. Uh,
Yes.
but like I had told him I'm concerned about how that truck's gonna last him because I've seen so many like videos and horror stories about the EcoBoost having problems. Like all
Is
of
this a
them.
3.5 or a 2.7?
2.7, but it's the 2018 refresh version.
Okay, the 2.7s are actually pretty good motors, apart from the fact that it has a belt-driven oil pump that's in the timing cover.
Yep, he's
Like,
told me about that.
but I think it's instead of rubber like the 1 liter EcoBoost, it's actually Kevlar, which I don't know how that's gonna do. Still, it's better than rubber, but
Yeah, by
I
far.
think there's an aftermarket company that makes replacement metal chains instead of that. I was pissed when the Gen 4 Coyotes announced were gonna have that same setup.
Yeah, because it just seems like it's a cost cutting kind of deal. It's not quite like gonna be the most
GM
reliable setup,
GM did it on the 3 liter Duramax, and those are having a bunch of issues too.
which is sad because I actually debated once I either get the GTI refinanced or if I pay it off, getting a 3 liter Duramax because I love straight six engines and I love turbo diesel straight sixes, and I didn't want to spend Cummins money. So I was like, I could get a 3 liter Duramax. But then after, it seems like all of the 50 of the light duty diesels, like the 3 liter Duramax, the Eco Diesel, and all of its infamous issues, and even like the 3 liter Power Stroke, were having some trouble. So I was just like, I guess the diesels are best suited for the big dogs.
The 30 liter Power Stroke is the exact same motor they put in the Range Rover diesels.
And aren't those pretty unreliable?
Well, it's a Range Rover, so
That
yeah.
I guess that answers the question.
Um, the thing is I will never own a General Motors vehicle unless it's a Corvette.
I'm with
I've
you
said
there.
I've
Like,
said that because GM stuff. It's like I know Ford stuff's bad, but GM stuff is bad in a different way.
all three of the major companies have their own faults. And I've noticed, like, me and the guys have had at length discussions on domestic brands because Michael tends to defend domestic brands, whereas the rest of us kind of are like, because
The only
he's the only one that's had a good experience with a domestic brand out of all of us. He's the only
the only,
one to have a good experience. Because,
the only
like,
domestic brand I will defend is Ford, but I've
right,
also been around Fords my entire life, and
right,
I know how to work on a lot of them. So,
right. You know how to get around
hmm
any issues they have. Like, Kaysen had a Ram at one point and it's fallen apart. The Sport Track was the Sport Track. And one of my other friends, Tyler, he has an F-150 that's treated him really well. And I will say that he's got I think it's like a 98 or a 99, like that round body truck.
they're
And
ugly, but they'll run forever.
yeah, he hasn't had a ton of issues out of it, I don't think. But
I had a I had an 11th gen that had 260,000 miles on it, and the thing was just nickel and diming me to death. That's when I just had to say screw it, and that's when I got the BMW
right,
because I'm not paying what new and used trucks are going for.
right, to keep it running.
hmm
Like that's effectively what finally got me to get rid of the Sport Track. On top of all of the reliability issues it had, I was just like, I am spending a car payment a month to keep this thing running.
hmm
And as much as I loved it, ish. I kind of felt. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of fell out of love with it towards the end, and that's how
Hmm.
how I convinced myself it's time to let it go. Aside from my now fiance's words echoing in my ears about it's time to let it go and get something that will actually make it work. Because I mean, I would spend give or take $300 or $400 some months just to keep that thing running if I had to, and I mean, I was constantly having to fight. It was playing whack a mole because it's like the thermostat housing kept failing, and so I put the metal one in it, and it was having, oil leaks. I kept having to track down, and then the fire happened, and then I was chasing electrical issues down, and sometimes the neutral safety switch would fail out of nowhere, and it wouldn't start. Like it was a very fickle truck towards the end of the time I had it, and it's like that's when I was finally like, all right, it's time to let the first car blues get away from
Yeah.
me and get into something I know is I'm gonna be able to trust for a few years. And I know a lot of people probably thought you wanted reliability, but you bought a Volkswagen. Like I could feel it when I made that video revealing the car. I could feel all the diehard Ford purists going, you got a Volkswagen expecting reliability. But it's like you with Ford. I grew up around Volkswagens. It's probably the brand I know the most about. So, I mean, I have it's much like how you were with Ford. I defend Volkswagen all the time, even with
See,
Dieselgate.
well, see, I'm a Ford fan, but I will never recommend. If someone asks me like a car to recommend, I will never recommend a Ford for the first thing unless it's a truck or a
Right.
Mustang.
Right. And I'm the
It's,
same way too. Like, if anyone's like, I
it's,
want a domestic car, usually I'll jump straight to the Corvette. I will say, get nothing else but a Corvette or a Mustang, leave it all alone. like,
mm,
like the Camaro's good. My
you
issue
can't
with the
see out of
Camaro,
it.
you can't see out of it. That's what I was about to say. My favorite GM car that's not the Corvette is it's got to be like the GTO and the G8 or the SS
Well, those are
sedan.
the
Those are
Holdens.
goaded. Yeah, those are goaded. Like the Camaro is so hit and miss with me because I love the fifth gen and I love the sixth gen. But having been in both, having sat in as Yell 11LE and having ridden in a fifth gen SS for much of my early childhood, they are cramped. They're very cramped cars. Like
Mhm.
it's I feel like my claustrophobia kicks in hard in those things. And there's not many cars that I feel claustrophobic in. The only two that come to
Here,
mind is the Camaro and the S2000, and the Miata, obviously. But like those three are like the only cars that ever made me feel claustrophobic. But like
mhm.
I've ridden in multiple Mustangs, never had that issue. I've ridden in plenty of Mopars, and those you never feel like claustrophobic in because they're
Oh
huge.
hell no.
It's like you're sitting in a house when you drive those things. But like I that's my biggest thing with GM is like Camaro. They just made it worse when the sixth gen came out. They made it even smaller, which is great for
See,
handling, but how are you gonna fit someone like me in a Camaro and be comfortable
the Camaro is like it's bigger than the Mustang. I think like in dimension wise,
with the
it
interior
feels
so
smaller.
cramped?
I know, like the Mustang's like the Mustang is a small car, but it doesn't feel like a small car in the inside unless you're in the back seat. Like if you're
Yeah,
driving it,
it feels
it feels
fine.
like you feels like you're in like a Ford Fusion rather than like
Right.
yeah, like even the S197 or not the S197, the SN95s felt big on the inside.
Yeah.
I will say the six gen Camaros do drive phenomenally well.
Oh, they do. That Alpha chassis is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, briefly considered a 2-liter Camaro because I am a
Don't do
bit
that
of
to
a,
yourself.
huh?
Don't do that to yourself.
I see briefly considered for a reason because from what I read, it's just a direct injected Cobalt SS motor, and that is probably one of my favorite GM cars. Like one of my favorite non V8 GMs is the Cobalt SS. That is a hot take, I am sure, and I will probably get flamed for it on a VW owner group somewhere if they hear that. But I adored that era of domestic cars, like the SRT4s, the Focus SVTs, the
What?
Cobalt SS, the OG Focus ST when that came out. Like I loved all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I loved watching domestic brands take it to, try to give the GTI a run for its money in its own class. And while it may not have worked out, we did get some cool
Mm-hmm.
cars out of it for a couple years. So I really love them all. And Like, I was like, I thought about the Camaro because I'm like, I get a modern car, even though the trim levels are garbo for the 2 liters. But I get a modern, effectively rear-wheel drive Cobalt SS, and like I strongly considered it. Michael's mom had a fully loaded 3LT 2-liter Camaro with a manual. Honestly,
Hmm.
pretty nice car for the money. I mean, it was fully
Hmm.
loaded. It had the leather seat. It had heated and cooled seats, I believe, and it had the no lift shift feature from the SS. So you could no lift shift from the factory. This 4-cylinder turbo Camaro. Michael thrashed that thing. He loved that car, and that's actually what they got rid of to get his Audi. They traded it for the Audi.
Hmm.
And I was like, dude, I actually kind of like this car after riding in it with him and getting to experience it. It had launch control. It had all the features the SS had. It just wasn't the soundtrack. But
The one, the one thing I love about the non V8 pony cars, like, okay, well, except for the Challenger, but like
yeah,
the Camaro, from the Mustang and to some extent the Camaro, is the EcoBoost Mustang and EcoTech Camaro. There's actually a decent amount of aftermarket support for them,
oh yeah,
especially the EcoBoost
the
motors, because
EcoBoost gets crazy mods. I've seen some fast EcoBoost Mustangs.
the problem is that they're not very reliable.
No, especially once you start pushing that much power out of them. Like,
I
and that's
I
the issue with the Camaro too, though. It's like I was researching it. Only one company makes mods for it, and that's what sucks. Is they have a decent aftermarket because there's plenty of parts available, but only one company manufactures and tunes them. So I'm like, that's what sucks, and that's kind of what sold me off of them. Was I was like, I didn't like the interior. I like the powertrain, but I didn't like that one company was the only place I could get my parts from. Whereas, you go with the Mustang, you've got Bama, you've got American Muscle, you've got all these sites and place CJ Pony Parts, you've got all these places,
Not to
Jegs.
mention Roush and Celine make parts for EcoBoost cars now.
Right. So I'm like, you get all these companies. That's why the EcoBoost was always the better option to me because I was
Hmm.
like, it has more support than the 2-liter does in the Camaro, even if I think the 2-liter Camaro is a more dynamic sports car kind of experience, whereas the Mustang it kind of like the EcoBoost still is a more drag focused powertrain than I would say the Camaro is with the 2-liter. But I was like I wanted a 10-speed EcoBoost for a while, but I think I still made the decision that best fit me, and EcoBoost Mustangs were costing way too much, and I was not getting a base model. I couldn't do the tiny screen and the cloth seats. I couldn't do it.
See, when I was having that scare about my Mustang's engine, when I opened the catch can, I found metal flakes in it
Oh
before I turned
yeah,
off to Blackstone. I started looking at 2018 and up S550s, and I found one. It was a silver with black wheels, black accents, but it was a base interior. And I'm like,
that interior is so bad.
yeah. And I was so happy to find out my engine is fine. That
Yeah,
made me so happy because my car is actually kind of rare.
I remember you telling me it's got some options on it that were pretty
the
uncommon.
The glass roof is
That's right. I
the
couldn't remember if yours had the glass roof or it was some other rare option it had.
no, mine is a GT Premium, and the only option that they tacked onto the GT Premium was literally the glass roof because my car has what's standard on the GT Premium. Actually, the glass roof and the 373 gear ratio because the standard is a 355.
Right.
But I want to I want to get what's that one website that does like tells you like breaks down like how many miles you're made, how many with this option, what this
Oh man,
option,
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the site.
because I was looking it up because my neighbor is an insurance adjuster for Nationwide,
Mm.
and he was asking me some questions about it. He's like, how uncommon are those glass roof cars? And I told him I've probably only seen two or three other than mine in the
Right.
wild. And then I started doing some googling and found out that they only made 4,009, a little under 4,100 left the factory, but you could get them on any premium. Like you can get them on the V6 Premium, the GT Premium, and GT 500.
So it's only the big
The
dogs that
rarest-
got it.
Except the only one I don't think that got it was the Boss 302, but the Boss 302 is track oriented.
Yeah, that car was crazy. Like Hayden drove one a few years ago. It was what's that green called? He used to know
Oh,
that
Grabber
car.
Green.
I think it was Grabber Green. It may have been a different green, but it was like that metallic green they used on the Boss 302s. And he loved it. He's driven so many other Mustangs, and he hated all of them except that Boss 302. That Boss 302 stole his heart a little bit. But because
That's
he's
the
a diehard GM guy. That's like
Mhm.
he's big on the LS stuff. So like he drove that one. He was like, I like that Mustang. But yeah, like I would buy a Boss 302 if I ever got a Mustang. I think if I couldn't get the 1314 GT 500 for whatever reason, because that's my favorite Mustang aside from the Terminator, I would
Mhm.
get a 302 Laguna Seca if I could find one. Because
I
I
would
think
love-
that is the most savage track Mustang they ever made up until the I think the new Mach 1. I think the new Mach 1's like the first like track oriented one they've made since the 302 Laguna Seca.
GT 350.
The GT350. Yep, I always forget that car exists, which is
That
ironic
is the
considering
only-
it is the best sounding Mustang.
That is the only car I would trade my Mustang for.
It's like
And
it's like
another one.
it's like me and RS3s and stuff like that. Like I would. That's like one of the few cars I would ever consider trading my GTI on. Is like a new Golf R or an RS3. That's it. I would not trade it in on anything else because I love that car. But I'm like those two, or like if I had like FU money and I was looking at 911s, obviously, or like an RS6 Avant, like. Dude, that car, the GTI's gone if I ever had the money to get an RS6. But
I love the fact that in that down south where you live, that you guys can just daily your dream cars or
Yeah,
your
'cause,
fun cars.
I mean,
up here, it
you
snows
can.
for 4 months out of the year. It's actually supposed to snow tonight,
Oh my gosh,
which pisses me off.
X3's gotta
we
come
go
out.
from having tornadoes to snow.
Oh
Literally,
man,
we actually at work we had to go into a emergency preparedness condition and prepare everything, and we had to stay till like 9:30 last night because we had a big line of storms coming in that ended up turning into nothing.
yeah, we got like the outer bands of it. That was really about all we got down here. But like,
Mhm.
I get that. Like, people are always like, "You're daily driving on PS4s," and I'm like, I live in Georgia. I can kind of get away with that because they can handle the rain pretty well. I almost got Cup 2s. I almost went for the kill and put freaking like Cup 2s or R888s on that car. But then I was like, I like to have some rain usability because Cup 2s are awful in the wet because they're pretty much half a slick.
That's when I got new tires for my car, because when I bought my car, it came with the Pirelli P0s.
Oh,
that
Pirellis
left
are
the factory
garbo. Those Pirellis are garbo.
Well, these tires were from when the car left the factory, which was in
They're old.
October of 2010.
Yeah, so those
And
tires
they
are
were dry rotted,
old.
and the rears had like no tread on them. I remember driving it. I dailied that thing. After I bought the Mustang, I dailied it for a month, and it was in October, November, so it was getting cold, and like if it was like under 30 degrees, it would not hook.
Ugh.
I remember getting on an on-ramp, heading to work one day, and turning into it because it's a pretty tight turn, and I felt the rear end step out, and I'm like, nope.
Yep.
I was going 40 miles an hour in fourth gear.
Oh man, I bet that was terrifying. Like
Oh
like I said, I almost went Cup 2s, but we get a lot of rain here now. Like when I was a kid, we didn't get as much rain here, but I guess we're turning into Florida more and more. Crazy people and crazy weather, and we get a lot of rain here now. So when I was looking at tires, I was between the PS4S, the Cup 2, the DWS06 Continentals, or R888R, something like that. And I was like, R888s and Cup 2s, that car will be on rails. It'll never spin again. But then if I get in the rain, it's my only car, I'm screwed. So I narrowed it down to the Continentals or the Michelins, and the Continentals are an all season, and that's kind of what made me hesitant against them. as I wanted a more performance-y tire, even though the DWS06 is probably the better daily driver tire. So I wound up going with the Michelins, even though they cost a lot more. And I've had them on for going on 2 years now, and the car spins a lot when it's in second gear. So I'm like, I know eventually I'm going to have to replace them, and I'm dreading the cost. So I'll probably look into some other tires then. But right now, at least, I'm keeping them.
That's one of the reasons I bought my X3 is when I looked at it, it had 4 brand new Michelin PS4 All Seasons on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that alone is enough to buy this car. I was already going to buy this car anyway, but the fact that it's got brand new tread on it automatically sold me on it.
Because like the Michelin just cost so much to replace. They're great tires.
But they're a good tire, yeah.
But man, $1,200 for a set of tires is not fun. I will say that. I hate it so much.
That's how much it was when I put so my Mustang, I replaced the Pirellis with Goodyears. I got the Goodyear Eagle Exhilarates because they're a sport-oriented tire that works in the rain.
Right.
Now, I don't drive the Mustang in the rain often. I probably will if I have to. Like when I picked it up from the Ford dealership after it got fixed from hitting a deer, it was raining, and that car, you couldn't even, unless you're trying to, break traction in the rain.
Right.
Like, they're I mean, I know people give Goodyear a lot of shit, but sorry for cussing. But
I don't care. I got monetization turned off. It ain't gonna affect nothing.
Okay. But I know people give Goodyear a lot of crap, but those tires are amazing, and they weren't too expensive. I think they were like $270 a tire.
Right.
Then they got decent tread life too. I think it's like 50,000 miles.
Yeah. Michael's running Falcons he was running Falcons on the Speed before it blew up, and he loved them. And I think he's going to move, because they're pretty affordable, the ones he got. So I think he's going to be switching his Audi over to them, and then I'm pretty sure a lot of us will probably follow, because he said that they're really solid, and like they're significantly cheaper, and they're still like performance. I don't know if they're all seasons. I'd have to ask him. I wish you were on here with us. Usually he's in the chat on these things, but I guess not tonight. He's working, so. But he ran Falcons on the Speed, and it was great. It still spun, but it was like really good in the corners, which on the tires he's had on it before, he's always put like really cheap summer tires from like I can't remember the exact company on Amazon.
Milestar.
No, it's like I can't remember. I'd have to ask him.
It's not Ling Long, is it?
They're not Ling Longs, but they're not probably far off. But he cooks them. Like they're good for the first couple of months, and then they just fall off. They're Garbo. It's like they have like 2 good heat cycles in them when they're toast. And I was just like, I ain't ever running those. Because he told me, he was like, I'd get those for your car instead of running Michelin's. And I was like, I'm not putting no cheap $100 tires on this car. And the Falcons I might run, so that might be my choice whenever the Michelin's do die. Unless I want to unless I just have the money to throw up Michelin's again. But hopefully by then I'll have a Mark V R32 that'll probably be running like semi-slicks. So that's my goal. That's my track rat. That's like my ultimate like end goal. Is I want to get another truck that can tow. Probably won't mess with it too much. Maybe an exhaust if it's equal length. I've been seeing that a lot lately. I don't know if you've seen it. The equal length setups for trucks. Like the 5.3s and the Coyotes and even the EcoBoosts, they sound great. I was watching a video on TikTok just the other night. It was an EcoBoost 3.5 F-150 with an equal length mid pipe. It sounded like a Nissan. It sounded like a GTR, and I was like,
I was about to say, which Nissan were you talking about? Because it was a VQ. Hell no.
No, that's the 3.7's job. But it sounds like the 3.7 sounds like a worse VQ. But like. The EcoBoost sounded just like a GTR, and I was like, that is wild to hear a pickup truck make that noise. Because if you hear it from a distance, you're like, oh, there's a GTR coming, and then it's a freaking F-150. And
those things will scoot.
Oh, yeah. You could probably make them as quick as at least a stock GTR.
I love how Ford has been really, really been doing like this whole sleeper truck thing.
Oh, yeah. They've leaned into it.
Like I think, like especially like with there's like 3 engines, like the 2.7, 3.5, and Coyote. like can be all sleeper truck. Like, have you seen those guys like who like take short bed single cab F-150 Coyotes, like put a tune in them, and they'll just like be running like 3 second 0 to 60s.
Oh man, I've used like Cleese McFarland. I think he's in a turbo one. He turboed. He has a single cab Coyote that's turboed, I think, or he may have converted back to supercharger. But it's stupid, and I think it's just a 6 out one too. He had a Shelby one. I don't know if he still has it. I don't watch him quite as much as I used to, but he had a twin turbo Shelby truck for a while, and that thing was scary. And I'm like, these single cabs are like crazy now. That's like one of my first choices. But there's a build I found on TikTok recently, and I wish I remembered his name off the top of my head. It's a white cat eye silver, or it was a Sierra. It was a white GMC Sierra, but around that cat eye gen.
GMC 800.
Yeah, but it was a 6-speed manual single cab with a upgraded 5.3, had the cam in it and everything, but had an equal length exhaust setup. So if you were to close your eyes, you think it's a Corvette. It sounds identical to a Corvette, and it sounds like it when it moves too, because it's a 6-speed manual truck. So it's like you close your eyes and you listen to it. It's like, man, this dude's got like a C6 or something. That sounds nasty. And you open your eyes, it's a truck. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to get something like that. Single cab, like short bed with a V8 and equal length setup, so people don't know what's coming after them until they see it.
Do you watch 337 speed videos at all?
Oh yeah, I used to a lot before he changed his name. I remember watching him when they had that old OBS Tahoe they turboed.
Well, he's been doing these explained videos, and
I love those videos. Yeah,
talking about exhausts, and so I know, like, you know how you can get a Coyote sound really raspy. Like
the majority of Coyotes.
I will get flack for this, but when a Coyote sounds raspy, it kind of sounds bad.
Oh, I completely agree. That's my thing with the Coyote, is all the people that are running just straight pipes on them or Corso Extremes with no resonation or anything have ruined that engine for me, because every time I hear them, I'm like covering my ears because it's gonna sound terrible. But that's like when you run like an H pipe with Magnaflows. That's my favorite setup on the Coyote, because
the H pipe. The H pipe is what gives it the burble tone, like what my car sounds like. Because my car, I left the stock H pipe in, I just put Roush axlebacks on it.
Right.
When people put an X pipe on a Coyote,
it's awful,
horrible.
The worst sounding V8 I've ever heard, outside of a straight piped like 5.3 Tahoe or something like that, which we have plenty of down here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've seen videos I haven't seen that specific one, because
you should give it a watch. It's a good video, dude. It explains like what the power, like how exhaust systems work, how back pressure works,
scavenging, all that stuff.
Scavenging. He even took a quote like was comparing X pipe, H pipe, and true duals, which is no
mid pipe at all. It's straight out the back. Yeah.
All. And he was taking a snippet from the Engine Masters episode where they compared them, and they showed that an H pipe and an X pipe basically make no difference. Maybe give or take a horsepower or two.
Right. It's just for
sound.
Yeah. Like, I know with the headers, like I know in Subarus, they moved to equal length headers on the Subarus now, which is why if you buy a new Subaru, they don't have that signature rumble to them anymore.
Which I loved. I kind of love those about Subarus.
But they make
done right.
Yeah, they make more power now because they're equal length. Because the unequal links were actually like losing power, and like which like people are taking the new Subarus and installing unequal length headers on them. But the issue is the turbos on the new WXs are twin scroll, just like the majority of modern Turbo 4s now. And it really messes them up because, twin scrolls kind of rely on that equal flow coming in. And when you've got unequal length headers, it messes them up a little bit.
Well, didn't Porsche on the 718s go to unequal length on those engines?
They might actually, because I've noticed they sound really like. I love the 4-cylinder 718s. People always are dogging on them. I love them because when you get
have a 718 Cayman,
right? Because if you get the sound just right, it sounds almost like a mini C63. Like I've heard a handful of exhausts on them, like that sounds like an AMG. it doesn't sound like a four banger. But they might, because it's a weird sounding flat four. Like it does not sound like a Subaru, but it doesn't sound like a Honda either. And I'm just like, that's why I love that engine. It's like one of my favorites. I asked my fiance like if I ever got a Porsche, should I get like an older Boxster, like the 981 gen that was the last gen that came with the flat six standard, or do I get a 718? And I showed her the audio. I showed her sound bites of both, and she actually liked the 718 more, which was kind of surprising. I figured she'd be all over the flat six, but she loved that little four banger in the new Cayman and stuff. So I'm like, that might be my go-to because I'm hoping in a couple years. Because if I got one, I'm not getting a base. The 2 liter, they're fine, but I want the S at least. I want to at least have the punch. But yeah, I mean, they sound really good for a four banger. It's probably my favorite current market four cylinder in terms of sound because like I think I'm gonna catch some flack with this considering I own one. I think the new 2 liters and the GTIs do not sound as good as the old four cylinders did.
Oh, they don't. I will say the new the engines that are in the current Civic Type R actually sound pretty good.
I don't like how they sound stock. I think it's the most underwhelming four cylinder from the factory.
I toured the Honda plant that builds those engines. My buddy works at the engine plant over in Anna that builds they build the 1.5, the 2 liter, the 3.5,
like the J series.
The J series 3.5s. He has got a TLX Type S.
That's sweet.
And the thing sounds amazing.
I've always liked those.
Probably one of the better sounding Honda engines I've heard.
I would still rather have the S4 over the TLX Type S, but the TLX Type S is probably one of my favorite current Japanese cars.
Now, and what was awesome is I got to see in the factory was, well, I didn't go, like, we weren't allowed to take pictures inside the actual manufacturing plant, understandably.
Right.
But in the cafeteria area, when you first walk into the factory, they had one of the last, I don't think it is the last, but it's one of the last remaining prototype NSXs in there.
Right.
It was that blue color Acura uses, that dark blue metallic. Yeah. It was a beautiful car.
I've always liked those. Like I think I hate the NSX is getting discontinued. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties on the stream. Like my bit rate is completely gone right now. I don't know what's going on with it.
You're going Roboto right there for a second.
I'm trying to see if I've got some interference from my work computer sitting over here, but we may be having some Wi-Fi difficulties.
I'm sorry to change the subject, but so for you know how I got my vanity plate for the Mustang?
Yeah.
When it gets nicer out and when I go to car shows, so there's a big group called Ohio Facebook group. It's Ohio Vanity Plate.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
I'm waiting to see when I see my car in there because I'm not gonna take a picture and post it on there. I want to see if I can find if someone else took one and put it in there.
Right.
And see if anyone gets it. Because a lot of people I asked, even car guys, I showed them what the plate meant and I had to explain it.
I guess I might have to shut down the stream for now because it looks like it's not getting any better after I turned off my work computer. Okay. That's usually what happens is I've noticed that like my stuff runs like Garbo whenever like anything else is next to it. Mm-hmm. And like my PS5, if my PS5's on, either my desktop or my PS5 will lose internet connection briefly. And
we used to have crappy internet at the house until we had Spectrum come out and they found that the fiber line going to the house, the existing one, was one, older than me. Yeah. And two, looked like it had been hit a couple times by either animals or someone hitting it with like a prod rod or something.
Right.
Like trying to mark for utility.